You've seen this 1,000 times before. Everyone has. From building pyramids to stepping on the moon, painting chapels, Santa delivering Christmas presents. All of these are just an execution of some sort of to-do list. And as simple as they seem on the outside, to-do lists have hidden ways that they affect our brain. They can make us love or hate work, anxious or calm, productive or lazy, all depending on how and when we set them up. If you also have known at some point exactly what you need to do, but still didn't do it, you might have fallen into one of these planning traps. As a medical student, through reading books, studies, and my own personal experience, I've discovered that the simple to-do list can affect not just our procrastination, but also our intelligence, memory, flow, and actual work performance. If you want to see how I scientifically schedule all of the tasks of a full-time job, university, and life, I'll jump straight in. The way that I schedule at the moment is a 6+1 day week. Let me explain. This is based on the concept by Paul Graham of the maker versus manager schedule, which is absolutely incredible. So the manager plans his day in 1 hour slots where he can have a meeting here, sign something off there, travel somewhere else. So all he needs to do in order to organize something or list something is just find an empty slot and put it there. Things can move around easily. They're absolutely fine. The maker is the person who actually does the task. And the way that they ideally would schedule things is in half day or in 1 day increments. Now, we are both managers and makers for different tasks. When it comes to life admin, answering someone, paying something, doing laundry, going to the shops, these are manager tasks in the sense that they are very discrete. They have a start and a finish, and they can very often be shuffled around the way that we need them to. But we are also makers. When we are studying or when we are working or when we are completing a project, we are working in this broader timescales. And the issue with mixing these with one another is that they destroy work. If you have a maker day where you are studying or working and you suddenly put a manager task in the middle of that day, you are really damaging your chances of getting into flow and doing good work. The way that I get around this is that 6 days a week, I try to almost do none of my to-do list tasks and I only work on my projects. And 1 day a week, I have a manager day where I'm happy to be interrupted. I can do callbacks, I can answer messages and emails, I can pay stuff, I can organize my life admin, because these are those discrete things that can move around. As shown by a study by Kahneman in 2012, we are really bad at estimating how long things will take. And even when told to think of the worst case scenario, academics always consistently underestimated how long things would eventually take. So even though I think answering one email will just take me 2 minutes, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it spirals into something, takes over my whole day, and I end up in this loop of just being consistently unhappy. The anxiety of kind of having done something, but also having technically procrastinated because it wasn't the right thing, is something that I used to be so familiar with. So now I try to be as strict as possible with this, because I know in the worst case scenario, it would have to be a 6-day wait for me to get back to someone or to do something, which doesn't tend to be a complete disaster. Of course, this is sometimes unavoidable. I would just recommend doing those admin tasks as your last thing in the day, so hopefully it doesn't ruin your flow otherwise. And this to-do list that I have everywhere, I just add and add and add to it, and I don't touch it until it's my to-do list day where I can get through things. The other benefit of this is that in the 6 days a week, most of the time, I have no to-do list because I have 1 or 2 projects to do that day only, and I can just focus on those and work very intuitively, which is the best way things work for me, with this peace of mind that I'll get to things next week or in a few days and I can just write them and leave them there. Next thing I want to tackle is how using a to-do list effectively at the right time can actually improve our intelligence and make us better at doing tasks. The reason this works is because of our working memory. So we have 3 types of memory. Working, this is our intelligence, what we use to process things. Our long-term memory, this is our experiences, history, Pythagoras' theorem. And also we have external memory. These are photographs, to-do lists, anything that we write or that we leave in someone else's mind to remember. Our brain works in a bit of a strange way. If we externalize something, for example, taking a photo of it, or if we write it down somewhere, we are less likely to remember this because, and this is rooted in transactional memory theory, we are sending a signal to our brain that this is an external memory. Now, this is bad because we're more likely to forget things, but it's also great because it frees up a lot of our memory space. Miller in 1956 found that our working memory, or our intelligence, can hold 7 ± 2 items at any given time. So it can be very easily overwhelmed, and therefore reducing the amount of items here, or the cognitive load in our working memory, means that we will just perform better a task. We will appear and feel a lot smarter. The impact of this distraction is huge. Imagine you are trying to study something and you suddenly remember that you forgot to pay rent yesterday, and that also you have to take out the laundry in the washing machine. These two things alone can potentially take up 30% of your current focus and attention, and therefore you're left with a lot less to work with. If you're someone like me, there's a million intrusive thoughts I have all day about things that I've forgotten, and these can significantly impact my work. So the best thing to do in this case is to externalize it immediately, and to have a very low friction, very easy access to-do list where you can dump every single intrusive thought and task that comes to your mind immediately. I personally use the Notes app on my phone, and also I have a really big A3 paper notepad under my keyboard. And whenever something comes to mind when I'm working, I'll just write it down and keep working on my task uninterrupted. Leaving these things to linger in our mind is really bad for our work performance and anxiety. And as Cal Newport said, your mind, in other words, is released from its duty to keep track of these obligations at every moment. By the way, if you want all the resources and the journaling prompts in this video, I will have a completely free Notion template that summarizes it below in the description. So if you want to get the information without having to rewatch me all over again, you can download it. Next, I'm going to tackle procrastination head on, because even though it can have a very specific plan of what I need to do, it very often happens that I don't end up following through with it. And I believe one of the biggest barriers towards effective work, and that leads to procrastination, is bad prioritizing. It's completely understandable that on any given day as an adult, we probably have 200 things we need to do. And it's really, really hard to try to process what's actually the best thing that you should do, which might not be a very straightforward answer. So this issue of prioritization can lead us in a complete freeze state where we procrastinate and do nothing, or we pick something that we really well know that we shouldn't be doing and is not the best use of our time. So if we are in this state, the best thing that I have ever found for the cases that I am stuck, I am overwhelmed, I have too many tasks to do, or very specifically, I know that there is something that I've been procrastinating on for days or weeks or months that I know I absolutely must do, but I can feel in my soul, I'm not going to do it today. I can tell that I'm ready to procrastinate on it. This is the best thing to do. Grab a pen and paper, and I'm a typer, not a writer, but I write because it's so much more powerful, and start to write exactly how you are feeling in regarding to this task. Full on journaling. And this is incredible. Honestly, 4 sentences, 5 sentences, sometimes I can completely unblock the pressure of what I'm supposed to do. So write what the task that I'm supposed to do is. Start writing out what is the reason that you don't want to do it. What are you afraid of? What are you trying to avoid? What do you think you need? And write until, and I swear for me, it's happened every single time, I have this huge kind of like impulse. I know what the to-do list is. And I'll start 1, 2, 3, as opposed to my other to-do list where I usually like do circles that I tick. In this case, this writing out and this restructuring and hearing yourself say out loud, rather than like passively trying to ignore the feelings in your mind, what you are exactly thinking can then lead to a very reasonable, organized, structured to-do list that will prioritize things right for you. And try to keep this to few items. I usually do 3 max, and then I try to tackle them on the spot. Honestly, it is the biggest source of free and quick motivation that I have ever found, to just write a few sentences and be like, yep, I know what I need to do. This needs to be done. I've convinced myself, and I'll start it immediately. In the book Indistractable, Nair Eyal addresses this when he explains that it's essential to think of our schedules as an evolving experiment that needs to be readdressed, rather than something that you just set in stone and need to follow through. And especially when you're stuck, when this hasn't been working for a while, try this tip because it really helps to block things. If you're anxious about a task or your to-do list, it's probably badly prioritized, and do some writing, please, about it if you can. Next is a very specific tip on how to literally write things in order to make them more likely for you to do them and less likely to procrastinate. Beyond bad prioritizing, being too big with a task can also make you less likely to want to do it. I fall into this trap a lot, where I'll just write something as shorthand and be like, YouTube stuff today. And then the day comes and I want to do everything apart from that. So the best thing to do here is to really specify what you're supposed to do. So instead of saying reply to emails in inbox on your to-do list, writing get back to Sam with a time for a call, hopefully you can see immediately that the second one is something that you're like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to get this done. So I use the same thing for my work, for writing essays, for doing studying tasks, anything. I don't say make epiglottitis presentation, but I'm like, find the differences between bronchiolitis, croup, and epiglottitis. So this is something very specific, and it's much more likely that I want to do it. Matter, Todd, and Lipke in 2010 found that a lower perceived complexity of a task makes us much more likely to do it. And we're making things more complex for ourselves when we glance at them by keeping them very vague and having to do all this breakdown in our mind. By writing something really specifically, it increases the likelihood of our follow through and feeling that's actually an easier thing to do for our brain. So writing things out as though you're giving the task to someone else so they need a bit more detail versus you're doing it yourself. Next, I would encourage everyone to have some sort of separate to-do list, which is like a dream list. It's for projects, not specific admin tasks that are very low pressure, things that we don't expect to actually tick off and which have no deadline. The reason for this existing is simply because of the Zeigarnik effect, which is basically our brains tend to stay occupied by a task until it is completed. So by writing it down on this to-do list, we're kind of opening up the task. So our subconscious will start working on it really, really slowly in the background for weeks, days, or months. It just starts it so we can come up with more creative solutions on how to do this when we actually want to bring it on our daily to-do list or weekly to-do list and start tackling it properly. It's this really soft way to be kinder to yourself and get used to not taking everything off, but also to kind of utilize some of that sleep work and subconscious work in order to be better and enjoy the things that we do more. And lastly, if you want to add something to your to-do list that is fun and potentially can make you really decent money, I would very much recommend video editing. And it's something I feel like I'm going to be talking about forever. Skillshare very kindly are sponsoring this video, and over there is my favorite course of all time on video editing, Ali Abdal's crash course on Final Cut Pro. Editing has completely changed my life. It is such a fun, such an easy skill to learn. And this is the class that I used and the only class that I've ever watched on how to do it. If you made it to this part of the video and you're kind of like me, where you think you might want to be creative, but you've never really monetized it before, and like me, potentially gone for a completely STEM career, this is a great thing to try. It's really fun to learn. The dopamine and serotonin hits are built into the structure itself, because every time you kind of complete a task and you can do something else, it's just like this excitement of being able to do so much more. And although you absolutely did not ask me for this recommendation, it's a really good way to make money. I know tens and tens of YouTubers, and every single one of us struggles with finding good editors or finding editors to work with. I currently still do not have an editor for this exact reason. This is the class I use. If you can use it to edit like me, let me know, but also just use it for your favorite creator, whoever they are out there, because they're very likely to give you a trial at the go. I have a personal link from Skillshare, which will give the first 1,000 people to click on it a 1 month free access, as opposed to the other 2-week, I think, that you get naturally. So that's a good kind of buffer to get you really good on this task and going back to it and seeing what you can change if you do decide to reach out to someone and really go through with it. Yeah, I mean, I know you didn't ask for it, but that is my piece of advice for today. I hope in any shape or form that this video was useful at all. You do have the thing to download below if you like to, but otherwise, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Be kind to yourself and others, and don't believe everything you think. Thanks. Bye.